What's going on, guys? My name is Corbin, and today I'm going to be installing some nice new Lasfit light pods to replace these crummy old ones that I have on my off-roading rig. So let me show you what's in the box. So here's everything that comes in the kit. What you get is the two light pods. These are pretty well built. They're like nice and solid. You know they're not going to break on you. Something that I don't usually see that comes with light pods that does come with this kit is actually these pigtails. So you can plug right in. You don't need to like permanently solder these into your car. You can actually just unplug these if you have to take them off for some reason, or disconnect them to take the bumper off or something like that. So instead of wiring in the lights themselves, you wire in this pigtail that's actually separate from the light. So that's really, really nice. Then it also comes with the mounting brackets. These are still in packages, of course. And it comes with all of the hardware and even the tools that you need to mount up these lights. So let's get into installing them. Now, the style of the light pods that I went with are the SAE driving headlights. Now, these are meant to be sort of headlight replacements for high beams, or they can assist with your own high beams. So just because they are SAE approved does not mean that they are legal to use on the road in your state. So make sure that you check with your local laws before using these on the road. Alright, the first thing I'm going to have to do in my case is actually take these old lights off. So I'm going to do that now. Alrighty, the old lights are off, and you can see all this moisture that's gotten inside of them. These are really low quality lights, and I'm kind of sad that I even got them. So you can see on the back here, what looks like a rubber grommet is actually just more aluminum. So there's no way that this is sealing on the inside where the wires are. So it's kind of silly design on this company's part, but we've got better light pods to put in, so let's go and do that now. So something that I really like about this kit is just how waterproof it is. So you can see there's this nice big grommet right here, which is actually a nice waterproofing feature here. And then even in the pigtail, you can see there are some O-rings around the plug. It's nice soft rubber, so you know that that's going to seal up really well when you plug it in there. So no water should be getting into these, and it should be nice for off-road use like I'm going to be using them for. Alright, so the first thing that we have to install is the brackets for each of these. Now, something that I want to point out is that the brackets for these are nice, thick, powder-coated brackets. This paint is not going to peel off on you or anything. This is really nice quality paint, so that's going to provide some nice rust protection against the elements. Now, if you look at these old brackets from the old lights that I had on there, these were like $20 lights that I bought, mind you. I actually had to paint the brackets myself because they were actually rusting on their own. And let me show you something really quick. I have another set of these old light pods that are actually acting as my fog lights. So let me show you those really quick. So if you look inside, you can actually see the bracket right inside there, and you can see just how rusty that is. So that doesn't have any sort of paint on it whatsoever, and that's just what you get when you go with a really low quality brand. Now, with these brackets from Lasfit, you are not going to have this issue. So I just want to show you what a bad product looks like compared to Lasfit's really nice product. So here's everything that you're going to need to install the bracket aside from the bracket itself. So you've got a big bolt, you've got the nut to secure the bolt, you've got a split washer, and that's going to lock the nut in place, and you've got a normal washer. Now, when you're installing the bolt, you want to make sure that the threaded side is facing down. You can actually see there's kind of a locking mechanism on top here, so you don't even need a wrench to hold this bolt in place as you're tightening it down. If you do install it this side up, it is probably going to interfere with the light pod. So you want to make sure that you're not like bumping into the light pod, because if you install this bracket first and then the light pod and you got this thing sticking up, that's not going to clear. So you don't want to make that mistake and have to undo all your work. So let's get installing this. This sort of trapezoid shape is going to be facing backwards. Now when you're tightening this down, you want to make sure that it's not quite tightened down all the way, just snug it up. Because later, we're going to have to be able to still rotate this slightly to adjust where the beam is pointing. So make sure that you leave a little bit of looseness there so that you can adjust the beam later. Alright, the next step is to actually install the light pods onto the brackets. So on each light pod, there's a hole here, and there's a hole here. And what I'm going to do is string the wire behind it, make sure it's nice and loose and not getting caught up. And I'm going to line up those holes to the holes on either side of the bracket. Now in these holes are going to be bolts. I know, big surprise. These bolts are hex key bolts. It actually comes with the hex key. And the bolts are going to need 2 washers per bolt, along with a split washer for each bolt. So when you feed the bolt in, you're going to use the split washer first, and then a normal washer, and you're going to get the bolt in the hole, and then you're going to put on yet another normal washer, and this washer is going to be in between the bracket and the light itself. Next, we can line up the bolt hole, screw it into the hole. Now only screw it in by hand first, and don't tighten it down with the hex key yet. We're going to want them hand tight at first so that we can adjust this later. Alright, so the final step here, before we finally sock them down later and fully tighten them, is you can see that if I angle this up and let go, it just falls down on its own. And we don't want that. We want to be able to adjust these and then permanently tighten them down. So I am going to use the hex key to just slightly tighten these down, just enough to compress those split washers and lock them in place a little bit. And I'm going to do this on both sides. But again, I'm not tightening it down as tight as I can get it. I am simply tightening it down so it's snug and won't move on its own. So now you can see we left that bolt slightly loose, so we can still angle it with a little bit of effort left and right. And now we can also angle it up and down. You can see when I let go, it's actually going to stay in place wherever I angle it, which is exactly what we want. So that's good. The next step is the wiring. Now, something that these lights do not come with is actually a wiring harness. They come with the little pigtails that plug into the back here, into the wiring, but they don't come with a wiring harness. However, Lasfit does actually sell wiring harnesses that you can buy. They're actually pretty cheap and really high quality, so I definitely recommend you pick up one of those if you don't already have wiring. Now, in my case, I do already have a wiring harness that I'm going to be splicing into. So this wiring harness kind of looks like a mess right now, but that's just because I have it tucked away at the moment. This is actually for my main light bar. So I'm going to have this turn on with my main light bar. So these lights will turn on at the same time as this light bar. So what I'm going to be doing is splicing into the wiring harness here. You can already see I have a couple of T connectors already on there, and that is from the light pods that were mounted on here previously. So I'm actually going to be reusing those to power these lights. Now, these T connectors can be bought online. They are actually pretty cheap and they're really easy to use because you can actually unplug and plug these T connectors in. Now, this is for splicing into another set of wires. So you could solder as well, but that is a permanent solution, whereas these are actually removable and temporary, just like the wiring harness here. And just to clarify, if you do get the Lasfit wiring harness, you're not going to need these. This is so that I can splice into my current setup But if you get the Lasfit wiring harness, then you're not going to need these at all, and you're going to be able to actually just plug right into that wiring harness. Alrighty, so in terms of the wiring, what I'm going to do for my setup is I'm going to splice into this existing wiring harness. As you can see, I've already got 2 of these on here, so I'm just going to do the positives now. Alrighty, so the last thing that I have to do is route this wire down so that I can pull this wire back up. So I'm going to slide this down in front of the radiator. And of course, how you route your wires is going to depend on each vehicle. Each vehicle is going to be different, but this is just how my vehicle is. This is a 2013 Ford Explorer. Alrighty, the next step is going to be to test everything to make sure that you did your wiring right. So I'm going to do that now. Alright, so it looks like we got everything wired up correctly. Everything's lit up nice and evenly, and we are good to go. Time to adjust these lights and make sure that they're pointing in the correct direction. Alright, so to align these lights, what I've got running is my high beams, my current light bar, and then also the Lasfit light pots. So I'm going to get in front over here, and it looks like I'm going to be kind of blocking the right side headlight, but that's okay, because we just want kind of a baseline. So you can see these 2 left and right lights right here are the Lasfit pods, and you can see they were pretty far off. So I already have this light bar set up properly. It's already aligned so that it's aiming straight down the road. But what you want to do is make sure that your light bar and your light pods are in line with your high beams. So this is assuming that your high beams are already lined up properly. So you want them to be right on top of those high beams, maybe even just a little bit higher. So you can see the high beam is just below that, and I'm aiming it right at that high beam, and I'm going to move it slightly to the left so that it's lining up properly with the light bar. So you can see the edge of the light bar, and I'm just going to bring this over to meet it and make sure that it's nice and even. Now these pods, since I'm using them in conjunction with a light bar, I want them to light up kind of the sides of the road as well as down the road. So what I'm going to do is align it slightly overlapping the light bar actually. So now that's also going to assist the light bar in lighting up what's further down the road as well. These are nice and bright, and I really like the pattern of these, how it's a nice flat bar. So you're not illuminating the ground directly in front of you or the sky. That's totally useless. You're only illuminating what you want to see, and that means that all of the light is going to that section. So that's really awesome. And the last step now is to tighten everything down. So I like to leave the lights turned on while I'm doing this, but keep in mind the back of this is actually going to start getting kind of warm. I can already feel some heat coming off of it. That's why there's this nice big tail of heat sink. So that helps it cool down. So be careful if this is getting hot. You don't want to burn yourself. However, what I'm going to do is tighten this down nice and even, and the reason that I'm leaving this turned on while I'm doing this is so that I can look at the wall and see that I'm keeping it aligned. So if I just tighten it, it's going to turn it up. You can see it moving up pretty drastically. So I want to make sure that it's staying in line with where I'm trying to keep it. So that's why I'm leaving this turned on while I'm tightening things down. That way I know it's staying in line. Alrighty, I'm checking the alignment one more time. It's still looking like they're good. If I cover the lenses, then I can see that they are still lining up nicely with the light bar. So that's perfect. And they're perfectly overlapping the high beams, which is what I want. So it looks like we're good to go and go and test this at night. So now I just gotta wait for nighttime and I'll show you guys what it looks like. Alrighty, moment of truth. So here is my low beams. Here are my high beams, and there's with the 2 light pods and the light bar. Now that is bright if you ask me. I'd say that is a success. Now, just for comparison, this car also has a spotlight on it. This is a police grade Unity 100 watt spotlight, and it almost drowns out the spotlight. So, and this spotlight is very focused, very powerful beam, and yeah, that's pretty impressive. So I'd say this was a success. So thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.